Hello, everyone. Um, so my presentation today on social justice is on the developmental and intellectually disabled. On the screen, we see statistics about the disabled in the United States. It starts by saying that disability impacts all of us, our communities, our health, and access to health. 61 million adults in the United States live with a disability. 26% of the adults in the United States have some type of disability. So that's 1 in 4 adults in the United States is living with a disability. We can also see the percentage of adults with functional disability types, which include mobility, serious difficulty working or climbing stairs, 13.7%. Cognition, serious difficulty to concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, that's 10.8%. Independent living, 6.8% of the population. Hearing, including deafness and serious difficulty hearing, that's 5.9%, vision 4.6%, and those with issues related to self-care is 3.7%. So this population, the intellectual and developmentally disabled, are considered a vulnerable population. And it states that their vulnerability is enhanced by race, ethnicity, sex, income, and absence of sources of care, in addition to having their disability. Health issues may sometimes intersect with social factors, including housing disparities, poverty, inadequate education. So the IDD population are high risk due to factors such as the fact that many suffer from severe health conditions, psychological, emotional, and mental health risks. Many have inadequate ability to advocate for themselves and their needs and are highly dependent on others for their everyday care. They're subject to attitudinal biases and prejudices in society. They face higher levels of social isolation and have difficulty accessing information on their own. So as you can see here, it says who are the vulnerable racial and ethnic minority groups, those who are uninsured or underinsured, low income children, frail, older adults, mentally disabled, physically disabled, and others. There are also many myths about this population, which adds to the need for social justice for this population. Some of the myths that make their living within society difficult is that some people think that people with disabilities are not capable of working. They believe that all or most with disabilities have behavioral and are intellectually disabled, and they create challenges in work environments. They believe that people with disabilities live different lives, completely different lives than people without disabilities. They believe that people with disabilities don't have romantic relationships. Another myth is that inclusion practices of people with and without disabilities always have negative effects. So bringing them together is creating more harm than good. Another myth is that people with disabilities will always be limited and that they'll never fit into society. In contrast to this, the true facts related to the IDD population is that One, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in 2019, 19.1% of people with disabilities were employed. I personally work for my internship in an agency that finds jobs and helps individuals to find jobs that they want to work in. So that's definitely a falsehood that they can't, they're not capable of working. Not all people with disabilities are. Another fact is that not all people with disabilities are behavioral. And it is also true that not all people with disabilities have intellectual disabilities. So some may be behavioral, but not all. Some may be intellectually challenged, but not all. Some people are completely, they have no cognitive disabilities at all. Another fact is that people with disabilities have the same likes and dislikes as others and like to engage and want to engage in the same activities. If you like going to the movies, they like going to the movies too. You like reading books, they like reading books too. You want to have a family, so do they as well. Another fact is that many people with IDD, so like I said, many people are married, they have children, and they have sexual relationships. So that's definitely a myth to say that they don't. Another fact is that inclusion practices are positive and beneficial for both people with and without disabilities. So we all bring good things to the table. We can all bring positive experiences to each other as long as they're given the chance to be included within their community and with other people, whether they have disabilities or not. People with IDD are very capable of learning new information and skills, and definitely have a place in society. They're not permanently limited by their disability, despite the thoughts and opinions of other people. So some social justice issues within the IDD population are that the population faces problems of unequal access to the community. Some just can't even, they can't access the community, whether they want to or not. Some may not have their own car. Some may have to rely on other people to drive them places, which means someone could say no. They can't just, not everyone can just go out and go wherever they want just because they want to. They face higher rates of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, and some are neglected because of these prejudices that people have towards them in society. And because some don't have the ability to advocate for themselves, some may be nonverbal. So, if you do something to them and you're a bad person, it just makes them more at risk. So another issue facing the population is a lack of inclusivity in the community. Even if they have a way to get to places that they want, sometimes people are not friendly to them, or some may just kind of close the door on them, pretty much. They might not feel welcome. Some face financial dependence, they may sometimes not have their autonomy respected. They may not have received a good education because of some of these practices and beliefs permeating in society. They may face a lack of freedom of choice. They face lower rates of accessibility to quality healthcare due to unconscious biases, such as language barriers and insensitivity of professionals. For instance, when they go to medical appointments, sometimes, when I was a ZSP, or even now, I go places with some of my individuals, the clients that I work with, and healthcare workers will speak to me instead of speaking to them. Meanwhile, it's their case, it's about them, because they feel like they devalue their ability to understand. So instead of changing their language to speak more plainly to them, they just bypass it and speak to the person who's with them. And that's disrespectful. They also face disparities within the criminal justice system and also face high rates of incarceration within the criminal justice system. Oh God, sorry, 1 second. So here's a statistic about criminal justice and the IDD population. So according to the Bureau of Justice, statistics report 32% of prisoners and 40% of jail inmates reported at least having at least one disability, which is 3 to 4 times higher than the rate in the general population. As you can see from this chart here, the general population is only 4%. And in jail, 26% of people with serious psychological distress. In prison, there are 14%, and in probation and on parole is 11%. So here it says that social structures are the problem. So society, social prejudices, inaccessibility, physical and institutional segregation, cultural and religious beliefs. These are all social structures that create problems for the IDD population. Some of the effects of this are, people, they're not able to access information or transportation. Sometimes they're not able to access facilities. They may not have access to as well as quality in education. They face issues of lack of employment. A lot of businesses are not willing to work with people who are or have IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities, or they're inflexible employment arrangements. They may have segregated services, so they try not to be inclusive with, people who have disabilities and people who don't. They try to separate them. If you have a disability, you do this over here. If you don't have disability, you're free to do things over here. They try to medicalize them. Many times the families are the ones doing the harm by overprotecting them, not letting them go out and explore and live their lives freely, maybe for good reasons, but it has negative effects. Lack of social networks is also an effect of these social structures that create problems for the IDD population. Ignorance is another thing that is created by social structures, and underestimation and devalue. They're underestimated and devalued in society. Here we have the medical model of thinking versus the social model of thinking. The medical model of thinking focuses on the person is faulty. They focus on their diagnosis. They focus on labeling them by their deficit or their problem or what their disability is. This is a person with autism instead of this is a person named John. Impairments become the focus of attention. They do assessments, they monitor them, they put them in programs of therapy. They segregate them and think of putting them in alternate services instead of services that already exist. Their needs are put on hold. And they maintain the belief that society is, it remains unchanged. It's going to stay this way, and that people with disabilities need to fit in kind of within that, faulty structure. And in the social model, they are more prone to think, the person is valued. They look at the strengths and the needs defined by that individual themselves and by the people around them. That they're more focused on identifying barriers and developing solutions to the problems that people with IDD face within society. They're more focused on outcome-based program design. So getting to the goal, pretty much. Resources are made available to ordinary services. So service exists, just get them a resource and get them in, not create one specifically for them because they have a disability. They're more focused on getting training for disabled people and their parents and the professionals around them. So including everyone is their approach. Relationships are nurtured in the social model thinking. Diversity is welcome and the person is included, not excluded, which is more medical thinking. And they have the belief that society evolves and things can change for the better for the IDD population. These are the things that here that the social model looks at to see how the world has an effect on the IDD population, such as it pretty much enables poverty, labeling, ignorance, prejudiced attitudes, and these all have a direct effect on the social lives and social justice of people within this population. They face isolation, housing problems. They're seen as charity cases. They have a lack of financial independence, a lack of inclusion. So a lot of those things I already said. Right, so the social model of disability states that the oppression and exclusion people with impairment face is caused by the way society is run and is organized. People with IDD can't access their community. Why? Because there are stairs and not ramps. So that makes it inaccessible to people with wheelchairs, right? The special schools. So that means only people like them are put into these schools, which means they don't have access to maybe making some new friends who don't have disabilities. That's limiting. Badly designed building, that's also limiting. Poor job prospects, that limits their financial independence. It means that they'll always have to be dependent on others, which limits their ability for self-determination. You may want to get your own apartment, live your own life, raise a family. You can't do that because society is not cooperating with being flexible and including them in employment opportunities. Right. And facing discrimination because these things are perpetuated. So let's see. What can be done? I think that providing sensitivity classes and additional training to healthcare professionals will improve some of these social justice issues that the IDD population faces, so that they'll be more valued and their voices will be heard. They can make it easier for individuals within the IDD population to obtain treatments that they require so that they will be able to get better. Maybe they can provide some preventative care so things won't get worse, and and maybe they can get better, or educate the public more about the similarities and abilities of people with IDD instead of holding to negative stereotypes and misconceptions, which will get rid of some of these stigmas that that people within this population face. Encourage self-advocacy. Many times they're scared to speak up for themselves because they've learned, you know, throughout their lives that people are not listening to them, people are not hearing their voice, people are not asking for their opinions. And so whether they have, you know, even if they do have their own dreams and desires, they want to take a class, they want to learn how to cook, they sometimes don't speak up for themselves because they're just so bombarded by these, you know, the lessons that society has taught them up till now, that they're not valued. They don't want to be, you know, them to be included with other people. And, you know, they just want them to stay in one place and just, you know, not progress and not, you know, get better. Respect their self-determination. I think that if people were more receptive to respecting their choices and their own voice, then, you know, things would get better for them. Use person-first approach, learn what their goals are, what they want out of life, and work from there. Focus on abilities and not problems. Focus on abilities and not problems. Be more of, you know, social model thinker instead of the medical model thinker. Don't look at them based on their disability, but them as themselves. And utilize the correct approach when working with the population. Learn what their needs are, what their, you know, their challenges are. Solution focus, or, you know, cognitive behavioral task focus. If you correctly look at what their needs are, then you'll know how to best serve them. Include supports to assist individuals to reach their goals. Some of these supportive resources are family members, friends, residential services, day hab services, respite services, community services, employment services, caseworkers, social workers, therapists, healthcare providers. I've done many of these things, and because the IDD population faces so many problems within society, they really rely on their supports to help them advocate for themselves, to get them what they need. Within my field placement, I work in employment services to help individuals to obtain jobs, and it's really difficult because of these negative stereotypes that jobs and employers have, you know, about the population. They think they're behavioral. They're not gonna add to the company, or, you know, the employment the job or whatever. So they're it's really difficult to do it, but assisting them to learn skills and advocate for themselves, and doing our part to try and change their you know, employers' thinking, and show them what they can do, that they can be good employees, makes a difference. But, you know, everybody does their part, and everybody works as a team to get the individual what they need. So that's my presentation. Thank you.